This is still very much an all-hands-on-deck search and rescue effort.
Has some impact as a consequence of the warming of the planet and the climate change.
Bunch of tornadoes hit the Midwest of the United States over the weekend, Friday into Saturday morning. Devastating results across the Midwest, Kentucky, Tennessee, a bunch of those states in there getting hit pretty dang hard. We've got a really interesting guest coming up to talk about them, who's in the spot where the tornadoes hit. Also, we want to talk about Omicron, the political things behind the tornadoes, all that stuff coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now. 3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Live from a dingy bunker completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Today is December 13th, the year of our Lord 2021, the year when everything is supposed to get better. I'm gonna stop saying that joke. In 2022, I'm gonna have to say it even further. In 2021, it was supposed to get better, and everything is still pretty chaotic. But some pretty devastating tornadoes happened over the weekend. Want to kind of really dig in deep with that. Kind of our big story. I've got a guest from Bowling Green, a friend of mine who's actually in it and had some pretty devastating results in him and his wife's house. We'll talk about that. Also coming up, the Omicron variant, first death reported in the UK. I believe it was today. So that's going to be a thing, even though South African doctors saying, hey, we don't really know that this is any more severe. But we're going to talk about that all after. I want to bring up a friend of mine, guy who I've known for a little while now, a guy named Cole Douglas Claiborne, who is a freelance journalist and also a high school teacher in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Obviously, one of the places that got hit really hard by the tornadoes over the weekend, Friday and Saturday. We'll bring him on now. Cole, how are you doing?
Doing well, relatively speaking. We're safe and unharmed, so happy about that. That's
good. Yeah, relatively good. On Saturday morning, mid-morning-ish, I think I saw on Facebook posted some pictures of, it looked like your laundry room that got hit pretty hard with the tornado.
Yeah, it was. Thankfully, I mean, this thing could have been so much worse. But the roof of the back corner of our house, which is where our master bedroom and bathroom and laundry room are, was completely blown off, and water just pouring through as it was raining, and it was one of those situations that you can't believe that it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching the news all night and following it, and I just had this anxious feeling all day. I never felt good about these storms, and I've never had that feeling about a storm in my life. And I just was watching the coverage all night, and it's just one of these things where you can't believe that it actually hit your house and in your neighborhood.
So this is from ABC News, and this is a couple hours old, so I'm not entirely sure how relevant it is. I know Kentucky came out and said they had a lot more deaths than this, but ABC News said at least 34 people across 5 U.S. states have been confirmed dead after a swarm of tornadoes tore through communities in the South and Midwest over the weekend. There were at least 40 tornadoes reported across 9 states between Friday night and early Saturday morning. At least 40, holy cow, which is unusual for the United States. Kentucky was the worst hit state and had at least 20 confirmed fatalities. And again, I believe that number has gone up. I don't know if you have any better information on that, according to local authorities. So we were talking before this, Cole. You said that tornadoes are not necessarily a new thing. What, I guess, makes this a little bit different, maybe for you, but for people in your community, what's been going on there in terms of how is this different? Obviously, it hit a lot worse, but I don't know. I'll let you kind of fill in the gaps there.
I think the weirdest thing is that it happened just like 2 weeks before Christmas. We're used to maybe massive snowstorms this time of the year. But where I'm from, I'm actually from Southern Indiana. And in about 2006, when I was in high school, we had a pretty devastating tornado rip through our area in early November. And so much of this day felt like that day, just in terms of weather and just the fact that you're in the winter or fall months where you're not used to having tornadoes. So it was odd because the next morning when people were going out to clean everything up, people were, in coats and sock hats and scarves and gloves, and it was winter weather when we just had a severe, typically summer thunderstorm event. Mm-hmm. And so that's the oddest thing, is that we're just 2 weeks before Christmas at the end of the year, and we're dealing with a storm that you typically see in the summer months.
Now, obviously, the destruction that the tornadoes of all cause is devastating. I guess I don't know if this is the right terminology here, but to put a lighter spin on things, what have you seen from the community that you're involved with, the Bowling Green community, but the Kentucky community as a whole, in kind of responding to the effects of the tornadoes?
It's been overwhelming, and there have been times where I looked out of my window and, to be honest with you, just was brought to tears. People that I don't even know, from places I don't even know, that have showed up to help clean people's yards, and just offer. So many people have offered us places to stay, offered us food. People have like Venmoed us money who I haven't talked to in probably 10 years. And it's just like things like that tell you that there are people that are genuinely good people. And this community in my neighborhood, I mean, we have the nicest guy in my neighborhood who has gone, he'll cut everybody's yard. He'll do anything he can to help everybody. Like literally the nicest person in our neighborhood that I've ever met. And his house was completely destroyed. And it's just terrifying. And he, that day, I mean, his house was leveled, and he is out helping other people clean up. And that just, I think, really embodied the spirit of what I saw in our community. I mean, there were people coming from all over and offering food and water, and just, I came home yesterday to check on our house, and there were all kinds of people that had cleared out all of the trees and limbs and debris and had pushed it to the curb. And it just looked night and day from the day that it happened. And I can't say enough good things about the people of Kentucky. I mean, here there's the whole idea of Southern hospitality, and it's true. I mean, I'm from Indiana, Southern Indiana, just across the river from Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So I'm fairly familiar with it, and Midwest hospitality as well. But it's true. I mean, this community has rallied together, and they're going to keep rallying together for as long as this takes. And I'm so proud of where I live.
Yeah, that's good to hear in a rough time. I guess logistically speaking, what are you hearing from what's going to happen next? You sent me this photo right before we got on air. I'm looking at it right now of this downed power line. Obviously, you're home in Kentucky. Now, you're not staying there right now, but doesn't have any power. Any sense from the public officials of when things can start moving again? Obviously, it's going to take years before things are rebuilt. But as far as water, power, and being able to live where you live, any word on that?
I saw something that there might be power within 3 to 6 days in some parts, but I mean, the picture that I sent you is right in front of my house, and it's a giant power line that's basically on the road. So they're going to have to come through. And I think I heard that the last I heard was they're going to have to reinstall 100 or so new poles just in our neighborhood with wires and all that. I mean, wires had to be cut so cars could get through. So it's going to be a long repair. Internet, thankfully, has been restored in parts of town. Like obviously where I'm at with my in-laws, we've got internet. And the school that I teach at, I believe our internet runs through a different, I don't know what you call it, service or, like landing spot where it wasn't affected. I think we have internet at our school. So there are places that do. I know there's a library that just tweeted out that they've got internet as well. So I think that's been helpful for some places. People have power, but my neighborhood specifically, I'm not anticipating to be able to live in our house for several months.
Wow. Just so you know, there's a lot of comments coming in, prayers and God bless, prayers to all of them. A lot of sympathy in the comment section. So we appreciate all that, again, in kind of a difficult time. So what is the best way, you being on the ground, everybody, obviously wants to jump in and help. What's the best way to actually do that, though? Because a lot of times people come in and help, and it's not really all that helpful, so to speak. Not that the intention is bad, but in a lot of ways, people kind of just throw things at the wall in these sort of situations. So being on the ground, what is the best thing that people can do from around the country, as we've got people watching from pretty much everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, if you are anywhere near here and you're able to help, obviously, if you're in any of these, if you're near any of these towns in Western Kentucky that were hit, your physical help is needed. But I want to beg people to not come by and gawk and take pictures. There were all kinds of people doing that in my neighborhood the other day, and it's horrible. Like, this is not a time to get social media clout and make TikToks of damage that didn't involve you. It's just not the time for that. And so if you're able to help in your local, that would be awesome. But if you're not anywhere near here and you want to give, there are a number of ways to do that. One of them is the school corporation that I work for, Warren County Schools. They have set up there's actually already a relief fund. I don't think initially that there was a way to give digitally, but they just tweeted that I think by the end of today that they'll have a way set up to give digitally. So I've retweeted a link, but if you follow Warren County Schools on Twitter, they should have some information on that. I know that several of our county schools, we have deaths of elementary students. I mean, just to be frank, and how kids are without parents. Like there were kids that have lost parents. They are alive without parents, and some whole families have died. I mean, I know of one of my students whose house is almost completely destroyed. And so it's, we have a lot of school age kids that just, they're kids and they're dealing with horror, and it just breaks my heart as a teacher and just as a human I lost one of my students already this year to a tragic ATV accident. And I simply just cannot fathom or stomach another student death. And so this is horrifying. And it's just, that would be my preferred way. My church also has a disaster relief fund. The church is Crossland Community Church in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And on our website, if you go to the Give tab, it'll take you to a website where you can give to the church in different ways, but there's a drop-down menu and you can select our disaster relief fund. Our church is pretty much right. I mean, it's 2 minutes down the road from my house. And so it's right in our neighborhood, and we've got teams out that are helping people. So obviously the Red Cross is another option. I did see that Matt Jones, who is with Kentucky Sports Radio, he's a pretty prominent voice here in Kentucky. KSR Sports is putting together a relief fund, and they're going to help out the entire state. I mean, they're a massive organization, so that's also another option. So there's a lot of ways. I feel like if you search it, there's just a number of ways you can give. I mean, for me personally, the one that impacts my students is the most personal. So that would be a good way to help as well.
So if you're just joining us, we've got Cole Douglas Claiborne, who is a freelance journalist and high school student in high school teacher in Bowling Green.
I might look like a student, but I'm not a student.
In Bowling Green. So Cole, not to put a damper on all the good things that you said have been happening despite the physical destruction here, but just kind of looking at all of the angles, there's some added heat to the fire when it comes to different components. You've been tweeting a lot about the looting going on, and if there's looting going on there. Have you kind of seen any of that, and what's the response from the police department there, and what's that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that people would stoop to that level, and if people are genuinely in need and they're stealing stuff, I really hope that they would reach out to the appropriate channels. But more often than not, it's people that are trying to take advantage of a horrible situation. And it's disgusting, and it's vile. It's shameful. Those are the words that I used, I believe. And I've seen several reports of police that have been chasing looters away. They've been blocking off streets to stop that. I mean, one of the most unfortunate situations is that one of the neighborhoods that was leveled, that involved a lot of our district's elementary students, is one of the immigrant settlements. We have a very large Bosnian settlement here from the mid-90s genocide. A lot of people resettled here, and so there are a lot of families that are immigrants. We have a lot of families in that area that are not as well off, and that's the worst hit part of town. And there are people that are coming and stealing stuff from the rubble, and it makes you sick that people would do that in this situation. And I know that it happens in every situation like this, any disaster, but it's horrible. And, I fully support that if those people are caught, that they are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I mean, that is disgusting to take advantage of this situation. So it's unfortunate, but I have seen far more good than bad in this area for sure.
So Cole, again, I mentioned beforehand, you feel free to not say anything, because again, this is a political show most of the time. We've got a perspective here, and not to push any of that on you. But I did want to read some of the blue checkmark tweets that were making the rounds over the weekend regarding this. And again, not from a political angle, but from more of a human perspective to kind of get your thoughts. This is from someone named Noel Scoville, who is again, blue checkmark, not a random Twitter bot just trolling the internet for mean things to say, but a verified Twitter user, said, "Sorry, Kentucky, maybe if your two senators hadn't spent decades blocking legislation to reduce climate change, you wouldn't be suffering from climate disasters. If you had any if there's any consolation, Mitch McConnell and Rand have effed us all over too." Again, I know I don't want to drag you into the political mud here, but any thoughts on a human level to people that are saying stuff like that so quickly?
I assume this guy deleted his tweet after he said this as well.
Woman, by the way. Actually, hold on. I don't actually know. I'm know
thinking
if
of
they're
Gallagher,
pronouns.
who's a man. I don't know. So
yeah,
I assume this person deleted the tweet.
They did delete the tweet.
Well, that's usually how it goes when you tweet something stupid like that. So, I believe I saw that one. I saw a lot of people from Kentucky dunking on. I think it was that one, and myself, also a blue checkmark Twitter user, replied to a lot of people with much more level-headed responses. Especially, I think it was that person. I mean, basically, it goes without saying, that's asinine, and you can't. This is, like we said earlier, this is not the first time a tornado has ever happened, and it's just like, come on. I mean, if you're going to say that, just shut up. Just kindly move on. And if you're not going to help, then don't say anything. And so these people that say that, this is why, like, I have not gotten into politics, because a lot of it, from what I've seen on the outside, is that kind of crap where anytime something like this happens, somebody has to spin it to make their point, and they get cheap retweets and cheap likes and whatever, cheap clout. And it's just so stupid. Like, it's so immature. It's so petty. And like, you're not proving anything except just that you're an annoying prick. And so honestly, like, if anybody is watching this and you're inclined to think that, like, just shut up and don't say anything and let us recover. And if you're not going to help, then just go do something else that doesn't involve us, because we don't need that right now. Anytime this happens, whether it's a hurricane, a wildfire, a tornado, doesn't matter. I mean, people like to do this after shootings all the time. It's just like, grow up. Like, I don't even know what else to say. Like, just grow up and shut up.
So, given that the political discourse is what it is, there is a time to say, things in your political side, make political points, and pointing at different things that happen around the world to make those political points. That time frame is probably not now, right? And I think that's what I think a lot of people are irritated about. And again, Cole, I don't want to drag you into this, so feel free to be like, all right, I got to go, do whatever I got to do. But I've got some comments from the president over the weekend. Nothing necessarily bad, but kind of in line with that, making it political pretty much immediately. Do you want to hear this clip and get your thoughts on it?
Sure, yeah.
Cool.
All that I know is that the intensity of the weather across the board has some impact as a consequence of the warming of the planet and the climate change. The specific impact on these specific storms, I can't say at this point. I'm going to be asking the EPA and others to take a look at that. But the fact is that we all know everything is more intense when the climate is warming. Everything. And obviously it has some impact here, but I can't give you a quantitative read on that.
So that was President Joe Biden kind of commenting on the tornadoes and the storms, and then throwing in climate change, which is a big time hot button political issue, especially for Democrats and those on the left. I don't know. What did you make of that? And again, I don't know your political ideology or anything like that. Was that okay? Was that fine for you, or is that, a little too soon for that? Again, say what you think.
I mean, I think this is the clip when, I think before we talked, when I said, like, it's not the first tornado. Like, he might be right, but right now, like, just grieve with people. And I know that he's done a good job of that as well, but like, just grieve with people. I watched a lot of our governor Andy Beshear when he was traveling around the state and visiting places, and he came to Bowling Green. He went to a lot of places, and he just, like, he was struggling to fight back tears. And I'm not saying that people have to cry, but like, just be with people right now. And that's, just love on people. And that's kind of my approach to anything. I don't like to cause controversy unless it's absolutely necessary. And I just, look, people are aware of climate change. And whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, I don't feel like shoving it down people's throat at this point is going to help anything. And nobody's going to hear it right now. I mean, people that are cleaning up the rubble of their house don't care about climate change. What they care about is that they just lost their home,
Yeah.
and frankly, a lot of people don't care about climate change when their house is upright anyway. Like, I don't know that a lot of people, that I talk to, I mean, it's told to me that it's a big issue. I don't really know that people care about it. I mean, as much as it's led on to be, but like, I just, at this point in time, like just grieve with people.
Yeah, the polling would show that, Americans don't actually really care. This is a Beltway issue and a New York media issue that people don't actually care. But I really like what you said. Yeah, when people are cleaning up their driveways and trying to find whatever they can that's left of where they used to live, that's the last thing on their mind.
Yeah.
So I like it. I like what you said. Very eloquent. Cole, before we let you go, any last kind of thoughts on this before you kind of wrap this segment up?
I mean, I've just been overwhelmed, like I said earlier, by the people that have been supportive of not just me and my family, but everybody in this community. I just, I never in my life thought that I'd live through this. I mean, I've always been the type of person that has actually kind of been, I've enjoyed storms. I used to want to be a weather person, a storm chaser. Like, I've always been fascinated by weather. And that's why I knew on Friday night going into Saturday morning that something was different, because I never felt good about it. Part of it was because my wife was out of town in Louisville, and so I was home alone. I was home alone with just our cats, and so I think that added to a lot of the anxiety because we were apart. She had already made plans to visit friends, and so I'm very grateful. I had what I would call godly discernment. I mean, I felt like the Holy Spirit was speaking to me that night, and I followed every direction that they say to do. As soon as it was entering into this town called Russellville, which is just southwest of us. And as soon as it got there, I was looking at it, and it was tracking right toward the center of Bowling Green, which is where my wife and I live. And so I just knew, like, this is coming right toward us. And so I went down, got our cat carriers, brought them up. And then as soon as they said that Bowling Green needed to take shelter and the sirens went off, I got our cats in the carriers, thankfully, without any issue, and went down to the basement. I took my laptop, my Bible, my journal that I take notes on at church. I brought my wife's laptop, my podcast mic to make sure that this didn't get ruined, because I have a podcast as well. And a lot of other valuables, and my cats are down there, and was trying to watch the news coverage, and then power went out, and it wasn't but 5 minutes after I went down there that it hit. And so it's one of those things. I don't know that I'll be fine with it for a while, because it's just like I walked up my steps from my basement not knowing what I was about to see. It's just one of those feelings where you feel helpless, and then to see a giant hole in your house and rain pouring through, and you could see the sky, and your house is ruined. I mean, not my house is salvageable, thankfully, compared to others, but parts of it are ruined. And but like my car was unscathed. I put it in our detached garage, and a tree fell on the garage but didn't fall through. And thankfully nothing on the walls or on the shelves of our garage fell on my car. There was not a scratch. And that was like, I had an inclination. I never park my car in the garage unless there's severe weather. And like, I was worried mostly about hail, honestly, not anything else. And then we were able to hook up a generator to my detached garage to get my car out, and there wasn't a single scratch on there. The only thing that had fallen was a singular tennis racket, and it didn't even hit my car. And so it just was a miracle. I mean, we were very, very lucky. And, I'm praying for the families that were not as lucky and not as fortunate all throughout the state, because there's just so much devastation. So anybody that's watching, I mean, just thank you all for your prayers. I know there's a lot of people that were sending that in here. I mean, it really does mean a lot. It really does help.
Just kind of what you hit on at the very beginning of that, sometimes things get really hard, but I've noticed that a lot of people that come out of those hard times really reminisce on the camaraderie that was built during those difficult times. And I feel like that's what you're in right now. You're talking about just the overwhelming support of the community, and everybody has kind of rallied around that. So really appreciate the talk and the insight there. Cole Claiborne, how can people find you? You said you had a podcast. Why don't you let people know where the best can find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm pretty active on Twitter, especially this week with everything going on. You can just find me at Cole Claiborne. And then my podcast is called In No Hurry. And Jobob and his wife were
Yep.
a guest last year, so you could
Yeah.
you could find that episode back in, I don't know, when was that, February of last year, 20. I think it was
I have
pre-pandemic.
no idea.
I think it was pre-pandemic, so
You're right.
it feels like a long time ago. But it's a fun outlet. I was supposed to have an episode today that came out, but was not able to record because I was supposed to record on Saturday with actually my mother-in-law, who just wrote a children's book. She was supposed to have a book signing on Saturday, and so that none of that happened. So we're just kind of in a pause mode. But it's yeah, I mean, I'm active on Twitter and so Instagram as well. Cole Claiborne on Instagram. Would love to connect with people, and if you're looking for ways to help in this area, I'd love to be able to point you in that way. And I'm still trying to find out different ways that people can donate money and help. And so that's kind of a fluid situation. But if you follow my Twitter, I'm retweeting and posting a lot of ways that people can help and do that kind of thing. So it's been very just overwhelming in a good way to see people support us.
Cool. Well, Cole, thanks so much for coming on and kind of giving some perspective from on the ground there in Bowling Green, Wisconsin, or Bowling Green, Kentucky. I know you're not there right now, but maybe we'll have you back as things kind of progress and see kind of what this unfolds and looks like over the next couple of weeks. So, dude, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Talk to you soon. So yeah, the tornadoes there ripping through the Midwest and the South were pretty devastating in a lot of ways, and continue to be, it seems like, especially in certain parts of the country where you can kind of see in this footage that we've been playing all morning throughout the interview with Cole, that just kind of leveled places, and that's not, that's rough to look at. But in the comment section, appreciate all the thoughts and prayers sent along from the entirety of the United States. Really seems to be behind the people of that were affected by these tornadoes. And again, we'll maybe have Cole back on to talk about kind of I don't want to say fallout, but the aftermath of this sort of thing, because obviously there's got to be a lot of work done getting their power, water, everything, all of that back, and then obviously rebuilding all the stuff that was lost in those hurricanes. So really appreciate him coming on to talk about that. Not to drastically switch topics, because that's that's what we do here. We drastically change topics. Want to get to Omicron. I'm too embedded in this joke of Omicron that I've been saying the last couple of weeks. But the first death from Omicron has been reported in the UK. Now, I'm curious in the comment section, if you have any comment on this, let me know. Are you concerned about this? I'm going to get into a reason why maybe you shouldn't be. But yeah, first death has been reported in the UK of Omicron. But there's also this. South Africa has a report out. This is from Reuters yesterday. South African scientists see no sign that Omicron coronavirus variant is causing more severe illness, they said on Friday, as officials announced plans to roll out vaccine boosters, with daily infections approaching at an all-time high. Again, the South African Omicron strain. The daily infections are approaching an all-time high, but the South African medical officials are saying that there's no signal yet of increased severity for Omicron. Yet, a lot of the world is completely shut down. And again, we don't really know much, but there are cities that are preemptively completely shutting down. New York, the entire state of New York is in a state of emergency. Hawaii is in a state of emergency. Japan has shut down all international travel. The UK is back to square one. All of the things that didn't really work the first time, let's go ahead and try that again with your Omicron. Now, it's possible, I've been saying this for the last couple weeks as this Omicron variant has been around, but it's possible that could be a good thing. If it turns out to be less severe, it could be a good thing that it spreads to everyone. Everybody gets the natural immunity, and we're done with it. That could actually happen. We still don't actually know. But right now in South Africa, the health officials are saying that, Omicron, not entirely sure that it's any more severe than any of the other components. So if you weren't worried before, there's not really a ton of good evidence to now be worried. And again, this has become such a polarizing thing. If people weren't worried, now they're worried. And if they weren't worried, they're not gonna be worried. And if they were worried, now they're even more concerned, because that's the way science and data works now. I don't know if I should get into all of this. This is an interesting clip that I want to show you. Listen to this. Not listen to this. Watch this. If you're just listening on the podcast, one, appreciate you listening to the podcast. Really helps us out. But watch this. This is from Germany. This is a video from Germany that I came across on Twitter the other day. This is German police walking around with yardsticks. They're not yardsticks. What are they? Meter sticks in Germany. This is weird. Objectively weird. Check this out, and we'll discuss on the other side.
Da sind sie, unsere Zollstockträger.
So if you're just listening to this, these are police officers walking around with measuring sticks, measuring how far apart people are. They've got these big, long poles and are walking around literally with poles saying, how far are you? Are you 6 feet away? Here's the thing that I think a lot of people forget. The whole 6 feet away number was completely an arbitrary number. Just kind of came up with. If you talk to anybody that's delved into the science, they'll say, yeah, we kind of just made that up. Not really anything that shouldn't matter at all in terms of contracting the coronavirus. So if you have a mask on outside, remember, the WHO does not have any single instance of anybody contracting the COVIDs being outside. No, not a single one. The entire planet, not a single case of coronavirus has been detected to being caught and transmitted outdoors. So there's that. But not only are people wearing masks outdoors, the police are going around with measuring sticks saying, are you 6 feet apart? Or whatever, however many meters that is. I don't know. This is America. We use feet. But however, literally going around with sticks and trying to figure out if people are far enough apart so that they don't catch the virus outside, which nobody has ever caught it outside yet. But we want to make sure that people can't, even though they already can't, being that they're arbitrarily separated by yardsticks. So there's that. Boris Johnson in the UK said, all right, now we need 3 shots. Righto, 3 shots now, says Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the UK, after the first Omicron death has been reported. There's a commercial from New Jersey that we spent so much time on the tornado. We'll probably get to this stuff tomorrow. But there's a commercial out of New Jersey that we will have to get to. It is pretty nuts. There's a lot going on in the world. My wife and I watched an interesting movie yesterday. Maybe you've seen it, the Dallas Buyers Club, 2013 movie with Matthew McConaughey about the AIDS epidemic in the United States. Really interesting movie. Maybe we'll talk more in depth about that later, but there's a similar villain in that movie, and that villain is named Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci was around during the AIDS pandemic, and that movie is a pretty interesting look into how the FDA handled that epidemic, and now how it's handling the current pandemic. Just kind of again, I know it's a movie. There are some historical things that are wrong in that, but good thing to watch. Maybe we'll talk about that more later on in the week. Also, tomorrow, we've got to talk about the Texas abortion law being upheld by SCOTUS. I have some thoughts on that. Personal feelings on abortion aside, the Texas law is objectively weird, I think. I'm not sure how comfortable I am with citizens suing other citizens for, again, this is whether or not, this is abortion aside, it's the structure of the law, and I've said this when it first passed. This is kind of weird. I don't know how okay I am with how the law is enforced, regardless of what I think about the actual abortion law itself. We've talked about the abortion statistics in the United States and what people are like. Maybe we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Also get this crazy New Jersey video on tomorrow. But if you stuck with us the whole time, great. Thanks for doing so. If you haven't, you're just tuning in, go check out the podcast or rewatch this. Cole Claiborne, a friend of mine who happens to live in Bowling Green, Kentucky, had some really interesting perspective on the tornado there. You don't want to miss it. Go check out the podcast. Go listen to it on YouTube, Facebook, anywhere where you get podcasts. rewatch it. Really, really interesting perspective. Maybe we'll have him on a little bit later as the aftermath kind of unfolds and how the cities and communities there are rebounding from the tornado. That's going to do it for us today. We really appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you right back here tomorrow, same time, same place. I am off to gallivant around Southern California today, so we're gonna cut it off there. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow with all of those stories that I mentioned and more. Thanks so much for tuning in, Daily Caller Live. God bless America.